Tennessee versus NC State is going to be taking place there in Charlotte, North Carolina, neutral site game. Tennessee is favored by 7.5 points in this game. So 7.5. Wow. Over under set at 59.5. Another high number in these games this weekend. Take away Texas and Michigan. All the rest of these numbers are really, really, really high here. And this one is no exception. Tennessee comes off what I would say would be a rebuilding year last year with Joe Milton coming in and kind of being your stopgap at quarterback. It's a new era. Nico is the man, but with the keys to the offense. I really like this Tennessee offense in 2024 and the product of this team. Really good run game, I feel like. We saw tons of options last week as Tennessee breaks in their season with a just massive onslaught, offensive onslaught, and a good defensive showing as well. But tons of running backs got carries. The wide receivers look good. Offensive line is something that we'll kind of keep an eye on. We'll talk about that here a little more in just a second, I guess. But and then you've got NC State. Everybody's happy at Tennessee. Now you got NC State. There was some pretty upset fans last week.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Western Carolina comes into town. NC State, lots of people are talking about them. We were one of them, guys. We've been talking about them. We've been looking forward to this Tennessee-NC State matchup because of it. We felt like NC State was one of the favorites to win the ACC, right? We felt like this was a team that had a pretty good shot at going to Charlotte and competing for the ACC championship. I still do feel that way. I'm not bailing on NC State. But, boy, some of the fans sure did at the game the other night. It was time for the fourth quarter light show, and lots of people just said, you know what, how about you take the lead back, and then we'll worry about some flashlights on our cell phones. It was kind of a tough feeling in the stadium, right? I've been to a Georgia game like that, guys. It doesn't make you feel good whenever you're sitting in the stands. I can't imagine what it makes you feel like when you're out there on the field. I really can't. It was not a good look. Western Carolina was leading going into the fourth quarter. Not a good look. Not a good football team. Not even an FBS team is Western Carolina. They are an FCS team. So this would have been one of the worst losses in NC State history, if not the worst loss in NC State history. So NC State figures out a way. Jordan Waters, he gets it going late, ends up having a decent day, but it takes him a long time to get going. Takes that offensive line a long time to clear out a spot for him. NC State's depth won them this football game last weekend. Western Carolina didn't have answers at depth. As the game went on, especially in that fourth quarter, I can't remember how many points NC State scored in that fourth quarter. It was a pretty good bit to come back and win that thing and make it kind of look like on paper it wasn't as close as what it really was. One thing that really stuck out to me as well, Mason, Western Carolina threw for over 240 yards in this game. Not good. That's not good when you're about to play Tennessee, brother. So let's talk more about this one. I really like the Tennessee defense a lot more than I like the Western Carolina defense. So NC State better figure something out quick. What's your thoughts on this game?
I mean, my initial thoughts are that Tennessee's about to run away with this one, right?
I hate that.
I did have to kind of bail on NC State, and I hate it. I saw some things that I don't know if they're going to be able to come back from. You know, it was pretty. This was the game that I feel most confident in overreacting to is the NC State game, right? If that makes sense. Week 1, we don't know a ton about these teams, but there were some glaring issues from NC State, and in particular on the offensive line. I think that was the biggest concern for me after this game is that Western Carolina was able to get towards or to get behind the line of scrimmage and to put pressure on Grayson McCall way too often. It was that was his issue, is the fact that he had players in his face for most of the game. He didn't play well either. I mean, even when he wasn't getting pressured, he didn't have a great game. But I've kind of come off of NC State a pretty good bit after that win that they had, and I hope that I'm wrong. I hope that they're able to keep this a close game, but ultimately, I think that there was more bad than good. And then on the flip side, Tennessee is roaring. I mean, it looked like they are the team that we thought that they were, and a team that can compete in the SEC this year, that can be a playoff team this year under Nico in his first year starting. I think. I think that they're on a short list of teams that could win the SEC, and teams that can go to the playoffs. Um, Looking at this matchup though, I'm I'm looking at Nico Iamaleava. Played really well, 314 yards, 3 touchdowns. He was 22 of 28. Didn't play the whole game. Scored a bunch of points early. Got to sit, rest up and all that. Looked great. Deontay Thornton, 3 catches, 105 yards, 2 touchdowns. Looked great. Brew McCoy, healthy, finally. Got 6 receptions. Seems to be the go-to guy again. Chris Brazell got in there. Squirrel White got a few carries there, or a few catches there. Could see him get a little bit, a few more possessions, I guess. Dylan Sampson was absolutely phenomenal. 124 yards, 3 touchdowns. Looks like your bell cow. And then, the guys behind him played pretty well too. I mean, at the running back position. So I think that we got a lot more answers out of Tennessee. This offense in particular, we don't know what the defense is going to do. UTC has no offense to exploit anything that Tennessee wanted to do or couldn't do or whatever on defense. So I don't know. I think the jury's still out on the defense. Looked like they were flying around, having a good time. Played pretty well. We'll have to wait and see. This game should tell us a bit more about the Tennessee defense, I think. But ultimately, I'm looking at NC State and I'm wondering, how are they going to fare against the Tennessee pass rush if they struggled with Western Carolina up front? That's going to be the game to me. Tennessee is going to bring some pressure. They may not have to bring more than 4 against this offensive line, and that is a huge concern for me. Tennessee has 3 sets of defensive linemen that they can roll in and roll out with little to no drop off, and that is the biggest difference in this team from last year to this year. They got depth at defensive line, right? That's going to help their secondary play out tremendously. We talked all last year about how bad the secondary was, or how it was their weakest link. They weren't terrible. It was just their weakest link. Well, a lot of that was due to the defensive line up front, who played the run really well last year for Tennessee, but probably struggled a little bit in some areas to get to the passer. And now I look at the fact that they have 3 sets of defensive linemen that they can rotate in and out. These guys are going to be fresh, right, for the entire game. With the style of offense that Tennessee plays, that is huge. And I think that that's why we are so high on Tennessee this year. They're going to be able to get to the quarterback. They're going to be able to do it for the entirety of the game. I think we're going to see a lot of that in this game, and I think it's going to be the deciding factor for North Carolina State in this, and in particular with their offense. I think their offense is going to struggle again. It's unfortunate for Grayson McCall, but I don't know that this is the game that he's going to have a coming out party. We may have to wait until they get into the ACC play until they start turning some things around. Not trying to be all doom and gloom for NC State fans, but I think this is a really tough matchup. To me, Tennessee's a top 10 team in the country, and I think they're going to go out there and prove it this week against NC State in Charlotte. And they're going to kind of put themselves and Nico Iamaleava on the map. I think you're going to start hearing a lot more Nico buzz for Heisman after this game, and I think Tennessee's going to win pretty big.
Let's talk about NC State for just a second. What do they got to do to win this football game? Well, Tennessee's weakness on defense is their secondary. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Now we're going to see how much of a weakness it is. I'm not. The jury's still out. I haven't fully figured it out yet. I mean, you bring in some guys, Jacoby Thomas, Jalen McMurray, Jermon McCoy. How do these guys, how do they translate to an SEC or in this case, I know this is an SEC game, but How do they translate to fitting in this scheme at Tennessee? We've talked about the front seven of Tennessee all offseason. James Pierce is about to eat. James Pierce is probably about to eat, and he did last year, and I expect him to do so. But NC State, if they want to win this football game, they're going to have to use some of these playmakers they've got out on the edges because you can't be a one-trick pony. I mean, Noah Rogers has got to show up. That was a guy that doesn't have a ton of experience, but was a really, really sought-after guy that transferred over from Ohio State to NC State to play wide receiver. Casey Concepcion is a complete badass, so he is somebody that's going to have to be fully accounted for by the Tennessee secondary at all times. Um, he's the type of guy that even when he's not open, he's still open. It's still like a 50-50 ball. It's pretty crazy. He is he's long. He can catch the ball away from his body. Really, really tough to deal with, this guy. And I spoke about Jordan Waters. You can't be one dimensional. Jordan Waters can't wait till the second half to show up in this game if you're NC State. Your offensive line is going to have to figure out a way to establish some type of wall for this guy and let him work. And then last of all, Mason, I told you this past weekend, I've never seen Grayson McCall play as bad as what he played. And the numbers don't fully indicate it, guys. I mean, he had some numbers. It wasn't, it was wild really to watch because the throws he missed were just at the worst possible time. Just at the worst possible time. And I don't know if he was nervous. He seemed nervous to start the game. I'm interested to see how he settles in. And he's really one of the reasons that I'm, sitting here saying that I'm going to hold out some hope for NC State. Maybe not necessarily in this game, but long term throughout the season. You don't have to win 11 football games to go to the ACC championship. We've seen it time and time again. We have seen 3 and 4 loss teams go to the ACC championship game. It happens all the time. So NC State, I'm not giving up on them long term throughout the season. When they get into their ACC schedule, I think they're going to be fine. They got to figure out some questions. The defense is supposed to be better than the offense at this point. There was some things that really concerned me last week. I talked about Western Carolina throwing for 240 yards on the secondary. What's Tennessee going to do then? Are they going to throw for 340? That's kind of where I'm at with this thing. So we're just going to have to kind of see. And then for Tennessee, I think it's much more simple, much more easy line of victory here. Hence them being 7.5, a touchdown and a hook favorite. But I think it's simple. Can your offensive line establish the line of scrimmage? This is probably the biggest question on this offense is the offensive line. You bring in Lance Hurd over at left tackle. That was a really, really nice pickup this offseason. You got to have Cooper Mace healthy at center. I think that is pretty much the nucleus of this offensive line. I don't have any reason to believe he's not. I'm just throwing that out there. I feel good about the right side. It's that left guard spot. I feel like you're kind of still trying to figure out who's the best guy to play at that left guard spot. And the reason I bring up the offensive line, Tennessee's got to establish the run. They're really good at it. They're going to run the football about 50 to 55% of the time. I think there's a common misconception about this offense that they throw 70% of the time or some kind of air raid, and that is just absolutely not true. That Tennessee needs to establish the run early, which I fully think they can do against this defensive front, so long as everybody's healthy on that O-line and everybody's playing up to par. If you establish the run game, it's all over. It's all downhill from there because you'll have the defense on their heels, and that's what this Tennessee offense is all about. They'll get you on your heels. They'll get a couple of things going, and then bam, 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 next thing you know, you're not even lined up. And I fully anticipate NC State is going to be they're going to be reeling in this game. The defense is going to be running to go get on the football so long as Tennessee can have success on first and second down. Guys, that's the catalyst to this Tennessee offense, first and second down. If you don't have success on first and second down, I think you can have some trouble with this Tennessee offense. But I don't foresee that happening this week. I like Tennessee. I like Tennessee to cover in this one, Mason. And
Yeah.
I'm not sure about the over under because I think there's a chance that NC State doesn't hardly score.
Yeah.
I see this game going two ways. I see Tennessee either winning by 10, and it's a, I don't know, 38-28 game, or Tennessee blows their ass out. Those are
Yeah.
the two outcomes. I just don't see NC State being able to win this game, barring some type of crazy injury or something like that. So give me Tennessee. The front seven's too much. Don't even worry about the secondary because I believe the front seven's going to be able to get after this quarterback, and it's going to make it a non-factor. Um, I think NC State gets their yards to KC Concepcion. I think they get a few run yards here and there, but I think that Tennessee has the overwhelming edge in this one.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't even have a ton to add to that. I think that you nailed it. Tennessee's going to overwhelm NC State in Charlotte this week. I'm going to have to do some more homework to figure out exactly how NC State can win this game because as of right now on a Tuesday night, I don't. Excuse me. As of it's Sunday night. It's not Tuesday night. Tuesday night we will be doing a full breakdown.
We're
But
live. Gotcha.
yeah. Wow. Okay. But yeah. So I'm gonna have to do some homework to figure out exactly how NC State can win this game because I just don't see it based on what we saw in Week 1. I expected the defense to be a lot further along than they were against Western Carolina. Look, I understand the offense sputtering a little bit, new quarterback and all that for NC State, but I expected them to hold Western Carolina to one touchdown, maybe 10 points, 13 points, something like that. And they were able to kind of move the ball, and it was pretty tough to watch for that defense that we were thinking was going to be one of the best in the ACC. Maybe they still are, but in Week 1 they certainly did not prove that. I've got Tennessee covering. I'm with you. I don't really like the over under here. I think Tennessee could put up 60 on their own, if they wanted to in this game. So I would stay away from that because I also could see this being like a 40 to 10 type of game, and Tennessee just absolutely runs away with it. But there's no point in scoring more than 40 points if you're holding them to 10 points. So. But yeah, I think Tennessee wins this by a landslide.
I think so too. Hey, and if NC State isn't able to establish the run really early, that's when you get a blowout. That's what's going to happen because Tennessee's. You made this NC State team one-dimensional, and Tennessee knows what's coming. Ooh, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. We'll check it out later this week. Hey, Tennessee fans, NC State fans, join us Tuesday night live. We're going to talk about this game. Come on the show. Tell us why we're idiots. We'd love to hear it. Thank you so much for watching.